we can host the merchant or the acquirer so that the acquirer can provide a payment page to the merchants, and this acquirer also can have a back office activity. They can follow the transactions and everything. And for those merchants, they can directly use hosted merchant portal to see the transactions. So so the methods are this. There is a card, there is alias, there is by account number and keyword. So we do have 4 kinds of methods. And how it works is, this is how it works. Like when you want to use the National Payment Gateway, we'll have these options. The hosted payment page will give you in what form you can do payment. Is it through card, is it through QR, or is it through alias, or is it through account? So if it's a card, you'll insert the card number, and then you'll process the payment. And if it is a QR, the merchant QR is generated. That QR is a dynamic QR, so the customer can scan and pay the payment. And if it is alias, whatever alias of the preferred alias a customer wants to use, like a national ID, or it can be a phone number. So whatever associated, you can enter your alias, and the alias will be resolved by the CAS, or the centralized access addressing scheme. So the account number will be fetched, but it is masked, as you can see. So the use case that I have said before related to authenticated payment gateway service, like using the FIDA token number. So the customer selects a checkout widget, and then the customer wants to pay using an alias called FIDA ID. So in that case, it will go to the National Payment Gateway. The National Payment Gateway will share the FIDA token to the national ID, and then it will be resolved. And then once the token is given to the national ID, the national ID will give the token, and the token will be given to the customer. And so the national ID finally approves the token, and the NPH receives the payment alias token, and the FIDA token translates onto the CAS. So when it's translated, it will be translated into account. So finally, it will initiate the R2P, or request to pay. So finally, to the sender, to the receiver, the payment information is transferred.
You have 1 more minute.
Okay, so the other one is related to scheme. So we have one of the component is the payment infrastructure. The other one is the scheme. We have developed the payment scheme, the QR scheme, the Ethio QR scheme. So this Ethio QR scheme has 4 major components. Like it supports both static and dynamic, and it is based on the keyword. It's based on the MEVCO standard, and also there is an advanced security feature like cyclic redundancy check, and also it supports interoperability, and it's adapted to the Ethiopian context. As you can see here, the payload. So first one is, it starts from the version. The keyword version is 0.1, and it is up, and then we actually categorize whether it's static or dynamic. This one is dynamic. And then the payment network. As you can see here, our network is IPS network, which is at 28. 28 is IPS, so it's our instant payment platform. So whenever there is interoperable payment, it will identify this number, and it will route through EthSwitch. So the other informations, the merchant, the address, and also additional informations like bill number or invoice, phone number or terminal numbers. If one merchant has multiple terminal numbers, we can put those additional informations in the additional information page. And there is also CRC at the end to check the generated keyword is a valid one. This is our keyword standard. So to use keyword,
We don't have that
all
much
right.
time. Sorry to cut you off.
All right.
Please wrap up.
Okay. So how it functions, I think it's not new for you. But in order to use this keyword standard right now, as a customer, we need to have smartphone. As a merchant also, you need to have a smartphone, or at least you have to have a web page or a web site, and the form of the keyword is, it can be static or it can be dynamic. At least this keyword, it's not only for interoperable, it can work also for closed loop payments. I think, thank you very much.
From his work in the private, public, and development sectors, he is regarded as one of the leading experts in Ethiopia's financial ecosystems. His work on financial inclusion, digital platforms, and fintech innovation are widely recognized and have helped shape the financial landscape in Ethiopia. In the past, Tedros led the establishment of FSD Ethiopia and was instrumental in adopting digital payments in safety net programs. So without further ado, please help me welcome Tedros to the stage. I'm going to keep a very close time. It's going to be 30 minutes of discussion, so please invite your panelists. Thank you.
Can you hear me? As you heard the lady, we don't have time, so everyone come to the stage. So I invite Yarid Ndale from Visa, Nail Hilamariam from CEO of Chapa, Bernard from Arif Pay, and Abraham Talahun from Kacha DFS. So I'm a bit nervous because of the time. So thank you everyone for giving us the chance to be on the stage, to be speaking about on this interesting topic. So I'll just quickly give a chance to all the panelists to introduce themselves and what they do. I'm sure many of you know them, but I'm sure this will be a good opportunity to explain their type of license, how they are a financial institution, and what services do they offer. Abraham, if you can come. Yeah, also, yeah, you can start, please. Just one comment. We had one additional panel member, so you could see that it's an all male. It's not by choice, but unfortunately, one of our panelists had an emergency, had to drop off. So that's the reason. But we had another fifth panel member. Abraham, over to you to introduce yourself and Kacha.
Good afternoon. My name is Abraham. By profession, I was a banker for the last 18 years, and then I joined the fintech company called Kacha. Kacha is, as you all know, the first private payment instrument issuer licensed by the Central Bank of Ethiopia. We provide the basic mobile money services along with the digital saving and digital loans. And along the way, I will brief.
Thank you. Bernard?
All right, so the governor is here, so we have to be careful of what we say. So my name is Bernard Laurendo, CEO of ArifPay. ArifPay is actually the first payment system operator. We say that because we're the first one to have gotten the slaps from not just the central bank, but from the ecosystem. I have 15 years of management consulting experience as well as banking from San Francisco at BNP Paribas. ArifPay is really, we have 2 licenses. For those of you who don't know, so we have the point of sale, and I think I really appreciate what Solomon yesterday said about we need to also encourage post payments because we have 50 million cards, believe it or not, in this country. But we also do online payment, and I think that we're going to be talking about all those use cases as well, so thanks.
Thank you. Nael?
Hi guys, and welcome, Governor. It's Nael Helomariam. I'm Chapa's co-founder and CEO. So before Chapa, I was working at WeChat in China. So Chapa is here to make your business profitable. So we are an online payment gateway that basically enable businesses in Ethiopia to receive online payments from anyone and anywhere in the world. That's what we do, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate. So my name is Yared. I'm from Visa. I'm a country manager for Visa. By profession, I've been in the banking industry for the last 12 years. Before that, I've been in education. So summing it up, 18 years. So as Visa, we've been in the market for close to 17, 18 years with Dashan Bank, CB, and all that. We have been operating in the market from a branch office since 2020. And since that is opened now, I'm the second country manager for the role.
Thank you so much. So, earlier this morning as well, also the previous panel, we discussed about, about digital payments, about the regulation, the policy, and then we discussed about the infrastructure, right? So, Abraham, thank you so much for that very interesting but very complicated presentation. So for now, we're going to talk about the product and services, right? So all of the infrastructure that EthiosWitch is doing, all of the policy that the government and through National Bank is promoting, these are the companies that are actually going out and implementing it, right? So we want to hear from them in terms of, what's the current status of the digital payments, particularly for SMEs, why should they digitize, and what's holding them back from, accelerating the growth, right? So maybe just to start off, we talk about the digital payment, and why it's important for the country, why it's important for the economy, and so on. And particularly speaking about SMEs, why should they digitize? Why should they digitize payment? They are comfortable with the cash, right? So what's the value proposition to them? Why are we promoting it? Is it because it's nice? Is it because it's our business? Or do we have an actual value proposition to the merchants to digitize? Perhaps maybe I can start with Abraham.
Thank you, Teddy. Yeah, it's true. In digitizing merchants, I believe that we have to address 2-3 questions. The first one is why do they need to digitize their payments? What is in it? What do they really get from moving from the conventional ways, from the cash-based transaction to the digital ones? What is in it? What are they really losing currently because of their transaction is cash-based? And also it's good to properly address not only the foregone opportunity, but also right now what the digitization of the transactions brings to them. Clearly, we have to specify, to articulate what the digitalization brings to them. In my view, the first one is yesterday from the World Bank, there was a wonderful presentation, the new collateral, data is the new collateral. Yeah, I believe that's very true, because as those merchants, especially with regard to the MSMEs, you know, they have very limited access to the formal credit access, so because of the very known reason, collateral. But now, since their transaction is recorded when they go digitally, so their scoring, their borrowing capacity will be tracked, captured properly, so that they will have an access to credit. Plus, for fintechs like us, in collaboration with financial institutions, it will give us, you know, the momentum, the leverage to develop products based on the data, because once we have got the data, we can use it for various purposes. We can.
Thank you, Abraham. So I hear one value proposition, that is, we will give you credit if you do your transaction in digitally, right? Anything else that you are offering, maybe Bernard?
Yeah. So look, for me, you know, yesterday on the panel yesterday with bankers and telco providers, everyone was trying to kill his emperor, His Majesty the Emperor cash, right? And I was trying to defend the cash. So look, for me, and even at ArifPay, we always say, you know, cash ኃጢአት አይደለም. Really, ኃጢአት አይደለም. The real issue is how fast can you process cash or any currency, right? And it turns out, even the Prime Minister last time said it, it turns out with digital channels, it goes much faster. So that's the first value proposition. Did you guys know, by the way, that in the US, ETB is processed? Because in the end, the US embassy here is US territory, right? Guess how much time it takes them to process, I don't know, a visa. How much does it cost these days? 12,000 birr, right? It takes them 40 minutes to process about 12,000 birr. So the first thing is efficiency, right? How quickly can you process currency? And again, cash, turns out, it's like a very viscous liquid, right? So that's number one. But number two, you can't stop at that. You can't just say, oh, it's going to process fast, and then so what? So for us, in our specific case, what we do is we're trying to build an ecosystem. And so we have a bunch of commercial partners, not development partners, and we're very proud to say that we're fully supported by Ethiopian and Ethiopian origin diaspora shareholders. We have zero injection of development partner money. And so the thing is, we have commercial partners who are adding value into our ecosystem. And so currently in our post machine, we are empowering the merchant with all the payment modalities. So that's the second proposition for the merchant, right? Is that we're telling the merchant that there's interoperability, that's thanks to ET Switch, but that you can accept all payment modalities, wallets and cards and cash. So on our post, you can also process cash. So that's the user, right? And then there's a bunch of value adds as well, because our commercial partners, they come and they add a bunch of different value added propositions, right? But now look at it from a merchant standpoint. The value proposition with the bank was to say, look, here's digital payment, but you have to stay with me, with my bank. What we're again doing is we're empowering the merchant, and we're telling the merchant you can bank with any bank you want. So that's a big change for the merchant. That's number two. Number three for the merchant is the fact that we're telling him, and we're, by the way, following the regulation of the National Bank of Ethiopia, that we settle on T+1. This is, again, a big deal for the merchant, because they used to get settled on T+14, T+21. So the T+1 is, again, and we're going to monetize it at some point, because nothing is free in this world. But for now, we're settling at T+1. And there's a bunch of other use cases, but I think Chapa will talk about the online payment, and that's somewhat.
Thank you so much. So efficiency, also opening up to multiple payment solutions, and also, you know, the settlement is also a value proposition. Nail?
Yeah, I think now we should be able to say it in a nutshell, right? So I think, let me put some bullet points. One for the government, the merchant, and the end user, which
for
is
the merchant.
For the
So now we're only value proposition for the merchant. Sure.
So if you are only focusing on the merchant, so one is the merchant can actually be able to be empowered by receiving a payment from anywhere in the world. So imagine someone from the US paying for a business in Ethiopia. That's a big thing, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is, as Chapa, we basically provide for the merchant one bank account basically they can be able to open one bank account in any bank, and they still can actually be able to receive a payment from any bank, any wallet, and even international wallets, including PayPal, right? So this actually meaning the merchant don't need to actually open an account in every bank, which actually give the business owner more freedom to manage their finance. And also, yeah, as he mentioned as well, the credit as well. So through that data, we can be able to understand the merchant more better, where the bank could actually be able to lend money.
Thank you so much. Anything to add?
I think speaking on a topic last, would, is a disadvantage. But as my colleagues have highlighted most of it, but one of the things that I can't say, I can't go without saying is merchant payment is not only about the physical contact that you have, it's also the e-commerce, right? The card not present transactions. So when that comes into picture, the more the customer transacts with you and you have the data of the customer in your database, that means you will have the opportunity to learn about your customer to prepare a better products and services. That's one of the things. The other thing is, security. Having cash, processing cash, going to deposit and etc. Managing cash itself is another issue. And also, you will also learn more about your customer and create a loyalty service. That is also something that will give you, by using digital services for your merchant, activities, will give you that capability. Nowadays, AI is there, then you can translate your data, and then you know more about your customer. Loyalty programs can happen. These days, we usually actually in our country, we usually make the user pay more than that of, both the acceptance, the acquirer or the merchant. So, but then in other markets, it is about even value addition to the customer, because when you come and transact more into that customer, your loyalty will bring you something more. So that is one other thing that we need to also highlight. The other thing is, even though we are very, very weak about that, and we are going to talk about this actually, is that we also give the opportunity for the merchant. When you are digitizing, you will have a merchant app where you can be able to, record your transactions, see how, your business is doing. And as Abraham said, the more we know about your business, how your volume is, then you can sell that data or in such a way that your credit worthiness is realized. So those are the kinds of things, to mention a few.
Thank you. I think all of you have touched upon the major value proposition, right? Anything from value-added service, credit, opening up different payment channels, even you can get abroad from, get paid from abroad and so on, right? So with this value proposition, the merchants should actually be running towards you, right? They should be knocking to your office. I want this service, give it to me. I'm even willing to pay for it advance, right? So now, I'm not looking at the three of you. Now you're selling this product to the market. What's the uptake? How are the merchants responding? Do they know this value proposition? Do they understand it? Do they value it? So what has been the response so far in your experience? Maybe Nail, I can start with you. And
so I think one is, once they start using a gateway for businesses, they can see their sales grow so much. We have businesses that actually grow their sales by 30–40%. And that's because now they can be able to collect payments from majority of the customers that won't be able to only just go to their shop and pay in cash. So that's one thing. And as challenge for the merchants, I think the other one, the trust issue. So until they receive a payment, they wouldn't believe that actual system exists. So we need to be able just to, educate them as well about the digital payment. But the good thing from what we actually have seen, for example, I want to mention about the Nedaj story. So that was actually the first app that my dad asked me to install as a Teleber app. That's because of Nedaj. So this is actually a very big thing for the country as well, because many people are actually now getting to the digital world. So that's actually a very good example, because that was the first app that my dad asked me to install. So even if you see it on the merchant-wise, regarding also where the payments actually made from. not only the payment methods, but also the location. So it's very quite helpful, actually, for the business to understand more about their business. So for example, we had this business, an e-commerce shop. So they thought most of their customers are actually from the capital city, but they were wrong, actually. So most of their customers were actually from the West region. So we encountered many merchants like this. So the more they understand about where the device that the user is actually using to pay, and also the location, it's much helpful for the business to focus on that area so they can promote, because at the end, it's all about empowering businesses and payments partnerships.
Thank you, Ned. Maybe, Bernard, well, you answered it as well. You know, we have over 2 million MSMEs, right, in Ethiopia, across the country. So if we compare that to the number of SMEs that are actually accepting merchant payments, digital payments, are very limited, right? So we are, less than 100,000 or even less. I'm being very generous. So again, I'm asking if we already have this value proposition, we have the success stories, why is it still that most transactions are still happening in cash? What do the merchants respond to you? Because you are engaging with them. So what do they tell you?
Yeah. Well, let me correct you, because His Excellency the Prime Minister said, and even the Governor, that cash transaction, digital transaction has surpassed cash. So your statement is incorrect. Now, is it more P2P or is it payment? That's a different question, right? But look, for us, let me kill some myths right off the bat, right? Because we keep on hearing, I think even in the last 36 hours, that there's a lack of digital literacy, lack of financial literacy. For me, that's all false. Digital literacy, you can ask Nail as well, and even Abraham. Look, this is a pyramid. The population pyramid is like this, right? You go to Japan, it's like this. So this is a very youthful population. You put a device in their hand, in 40 seconds, he'll teach you how to use the device, okay? So we have zero issues of digital literacy. I think when we go even to the rural areas, it's still a very young population and they get it very quickly. Otherwise, we need to put the blame on Steve Jobs and all his friends in Silicon Valley because maybe their UI, UX was wrong, right? So I think the digital literacy issue is a moot point, right? The financial literacy, again, comparatively speaking, maybe compared to, I don't know, Bangladesh, whatever, maybe we're not doing too well, but I tell you, even compared to Manhattan, we're doing very well. So even like for me, in a very humble way, financial literacy, I'm maybe as financially literate as maybe a gardener in Jamo Ulat, right? So I think we need to put these myths away for a second, and then we need to look at what you said in terms of the MSMEs. We have 2 million MSMEs, 12,000 in terms of posts were addressed in the last 15 years. So remember, 2 million MSMEs or more, 12,000 post machines. Where did the post machines go? Hotels, restaurants where there was Forex. How? Free. Last time I checked, capitalism was the way to go. And when you give something for free to someone, usually they don't give value to it. So what we started doing, and Melka here is our director for partnerships and marketing, is, when we started, we didn't even give it for free. We gave it on a performance-based. And even there, the uptake, you can ask Atoid Lebes, because we are already the 5th interoperable, in terms of transaction for interoperable post payments. And the uptake for the performance base was already much greater than the ones that were given out for free. But brace yourself. The next, when we put our gear number 2, we said, guess what? We're going to now charge people. And guess what? The uptake was even much, much higher. We were being told, no one is going to buy your post. Well, guess what? People are buying it. Now, we're selling it in different modalities. It could be in different installment payments, a free trial for a month, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is the person has purchased the device. And again, it's about 10x in terms of volumes and in terms of value. So the uptake, I think, has been amazing. The big enemy, I think, is awareness. But there's a big difference between literacy and awareness. I think for some people, a lot of people in this country, if you say CVV, they don't understand. Expiration date, they wouldn't understand. On your card, right? But guess what? In 2 minutes, you can explain to someone what is CVV. It doesn't take a 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 years type of training, right? So for me, I think, just to conclude, right, I think the uptake has been amazing. We're very encouraged by, the the amazing thirst that the merchants have for all these digital devices, and they get it. We don't need to teach them, put them in courses, but no, they just get it very quickly. Otherwise, the blame is on us. And I think, and you can look at it there, you know, our UI, UX is pretty amazing, and I think we're doing a good job. So thanks, Teddy.
If I hear you correctly, we don't have any blockers or barriers to ours in terms of the uptake. The uptake is going. Perhaps maybe awareness is an issue, and maybe the number of devices. Is that an issue? Maybe if you can quickly react on it. Because if we have 2 million MSMEs, how are we going to make them digital if we cannot give them all, right?
So look, I was lucky enough to bump into the governor a few minutes ago, and I shared with him the issues that we have currently. You know, I think, by the way, the regulator has been doing a tremendous job. So especially kudos to Solomon. I mean, it's been really amazing. All these words that we use, PII, PSO, it's been coined by none other than Solomon. So it's been an amazing ride. But, you know, there are some issues, right? Because, for instance, you know, even though we get a support letter, the gentleman there at the customs will tell you, I don't really understand what you're talking about. And then they'll charge you taxes on devices that were imported 10 years ago. And we've appealed 3 times. But guess what? We lost. I think the last appeal was maybe 3 days ago, and I think we lost again. But here's the good news, right? We're really working on import substitution. It used to be $1,000 a post device. We've slashed the prices in a massive way. And currently with our devices that we bring, the hardware is just about $100, less than $100. With all the customs, it's about $300. But we're very hopeful that we're going to bring it to $150. And the idea is to really democratize these devices.
Thank you, Bernard. Abraham, from your experience, I know you have also been working in the bank, rolling out digital payments through mobile money for over, I don't know, 5-6 years. So what's the reception from the merchants? Are they understanding the value proposition? What's the uptake looks like? So what are the concerns or issues that they raise, you know, that's holding them back from uptaking digital payments?
Okay, in my view, still the financial literacy issue is there. Okay, am I audible? Still, it's an issue because when you go to merchants, they raise an issue which is really sometimes question yourself that are we really giving them the right knowledge? Are we really transferring the right knowledge? Because there are merchants, they don't want to go digital intentionally because they think that it will, you know, everything will be captured and they will be exposed for more taxes, okay? But also we have to inform them, if properly make them to understand the value proposition that I mentioned earlier. Once their data, their transaction is captured, it will alleviate their financing problem. Access to credit might be somewhat easy to get from digital credit service providers. And also these days especially they raise, you know, a trust issue because, you know, there are a lot of issues related to the social engineering and other attacks, so they are afraid of using it because some of them even do not want to attach their business account with digital channels, fearing this. But generally speaking, if you ask me, the uptake is very amazing. Ato Solomon was presenting yesterday. The numbers are very amazing. In terms of merchant payment, sometimes, you know, most of the merchant payments go through the P2P. I think that that issue will be solved with the introduction of the groundbreaking launching ceremony yesterday on the standard QR. This will bring a lot of issues, but also, again, on, you know, our technology has also to consider those micro businesses who might not have smartphones, okay? The interoperability issue could be addressed by the standard QR, but for those who have feature phones, especially on the micro enterprise business level, that will also help to boost this.
Thank you, Abraham. So if I hear you correctly, there is still some issues of awareness. There are still some issues about concerns when it comes to digitization, being exposed to tax and also, you know, availability of different payment options. Maybe Yared, from your experience, you know, Visa, you are a leader in, you know, various countries as a payment processor in different channels and so on. So from your experience and also what you have seen globally, how do you see the Ethiopian market in terms of some of the concerns that were raised? Are they existing? How are you able to circumvent some of these challenges? And how do you see also Visa's position in the market?
Very interesting question. Actually, Ethiopian market is very unique. I also have an experience working in East Africa and Middle East as well. So it's been always, you know, a burden, a challenge for me to see those things changing. You know, I want to raise this. One of the challenges that why merchant payment digitization has not grown very fast is because one of the reasons is we as a bank, when we are doing it, we kind of spoiled the market because there is no merchant discount rate, because that means there is no value, there is no return on investment for the acquirer. The only drive that we had as a bank was just to get FX in different high transaction hotels and all that. And that was, you know, an indirect revenue or indirect benefit that we are getting, which actually spoiled the market, because now if you look at it, you said 2 million, and then we have not even given 12,000 POSs. And those 12,000 POSs, actually, if you count them, the active ones are going to be close to 6,000. And if you go to many different active merchants, you will see 5, 4, and then it will reduce the number of merchants there. So one of the challenges, what makes it very unique in Ethiopia is, since we don't have that merchant discount rate, that, you know, if an item is $100, 100 birr, and 2 birr is back to the acquirer does not have any value addition. So it actually is transferred to the customer, which means that sometimes the customer will challenge that if it is expensive for me to do digital transaction, why not go back to cash? So those are the kinds of thoughts, or those are the kinds of you know, habits that we have to break first, because the acquirer has to have value addition to the bank, or to you know, POS operators and all. They don't operate for free, right? So those are the kinds of things we have to change first. But when we change that, we have to also show the customer, the merchant, that because I give you a digitized, you know, payment you know, mechanism, these are ABCDs that you are going to get. And by the way, a person who's purchasing using a card, in very different you know, studies, will buy more than a one that, you know, uses cash. So you'll have to show those kinds of value propositions with data to the merchant, so that they can change the behavior. And actually, there is also a conversation when we are having these discussions yesterday and today. I see that, yes, it has been improved and all that. Is it actually improved? P2B is not improved. Every transaction, I go to any transaction, actually I challenged myself for the last 3 weeks. I didn't carry cash. Except parking, I don't need to. But all of those transactions that I made are P2P. When it is P2P, the merchant will not get those value propositions that we talked about, because now it is going to be the data into the customers, actually the owner's account, not the merchant's business account, which means that the guy can probably get a personal loan than that of a business loan because of that data. So those are the kinds of gaps that we need to make a change to. Now, when it comes to Visa, what Visa does in other countries, and then what is Visa thinking in the market, is that now Ethiopia is unique in that we would still want those kinds of changes to happen. We are working with partners to be able to insert, you know, push that knowledge back to the customer, back to the merchant, and all that. We have different kinds of trainings that we give to both the acquirer, the issuer, and also the merchants, and we are doing it. And actually, Visa is no longer a typical card company. We are a technology company. We partner with fintechs. We believe that fintechs actually bring the actual solution uniquely to Ethiopia. So it is, look at everyone here, every fintech that is really doing a good job we are partnered with, and also the ones that are coming. Everyone in this panel is a partner to Visa. The same is true with all the banks and all that. And we have been actually preparing, to encourage the ecosystem in bringing merchant or, mobile or those kinds of solutions to digitize the market. VEI is not a very, long history. We have done this. Visa Everywhere initiative is to encourage the fintechs to bring solutions unique to the market and the country. And those are the kinds of things that we do here. And actually, Ethiopia is very key because, in East Africa, the number of population, the kind of volume, in these 2 years only, the number of transactions digitally is overwhelming, right? The future is very bright here. So instead of giving licenses to our partners and be able to support them in the typical Visa way, we have changed our strategy, and now we are in a partnership model. We used to give licenses, now we are giving deals. So those are the kinds of things that are changing, and it is actually really, really, pushing forward.
Thank you so much, Jared. So, I mean, my takeaways are: one, there was at the initial stage when POS were deployed, there was something wrong, right? The right business model was not there. That has actually distorted the market. And I'm glad to hear that Bernard and his team are actually trying to change it, to disrupt the market by actually making, POSes based on performance, based on payments. That will also help to get more POSes as well. But also with the QR solutions and also with the mobile payment solutions, then that means more options are there. We don't necessarily have to rely on the digital payments. We can actually leapfrog. But we have to address the elephant in the room. Businesses still prefer to get, cash, and they actually still try to avoid in terms of digital payments through going through their business because of tax concerns. There has to be that is, one thing that we need to think about. But also when digital payments are also happening, they actually are happening as a person-to-person payment. I'm sure all of you have used this, especially for Telebir or CB mobile banking, which are quite popular on this. But we're missing out on actually identifying and actually offering value proposition to the merchants because we are blind. We don't know what that transaction is happening, so that's something that we're missing. Maybe my last and concluding question for all of you would be, we have all the banks, the regulators, and the private sector actors as well. So what do we need to do? There is the regulation, there is the infrastructure. What is missing? What would help you accelerate and move fast forward? And hopefully in the next conference that we'll have actually hundreds of thousands of MSMEs, and we would pay even the parking persons through digital payments. So what's holding you back, or what can the regulators and other actors can do to make your job easier and to help you go faster? Maybe Abraham, you can start, and then we can come all the way.
Thank you, Teddy. In fact, the regulator it's really difficult now to request some support because it's become very transparent, unlike to the previous times. The Prime Minister was talking about the sandbox in the startup meeting, and also here yesterday it was frequently read these issues. Even if in a place where a regulation is not placed, we are allowed to test, without allowing us to scale up, or also without prohibiting us. So we are allowed for innovation. So in my view, as Kacha, the next thing will be developing products, business use cases that really addresses the pain points of the MSMEs. Because when we go to deeply their bottlenecks, their problems, then when we align our product services in a manner that alleviates these pain points, I think we will be successful and the number will goes up.
Thank you, Abraham. So no assignment for the regulator and for anyone. Maybe Bernard, anything, it doesn't have to be specifically to the regulator, but to the market actors as well, and also for fellow panelists as well. What can we do? What needs to be happening for us to move at much faster pace? And you have touched upon some of the challenges around importing and so on.
So, Teddy, you usually do a good job at summarizing, but there's one little thing that you said, merchants prefer cash. I disagree. What we've seen is that actually the uptake in terms of digital tools, because, we're positioning ourselves on acquisition, right? So on the acquisition, when we give all the value propositions and everything to the merchants, they actually get it. Again, they really get it. And they're not thieves. That's also the other misconception that we have in Ethiopia, is that nagade is leva no. No, you know, they like to pay taxes. But of course, if the like, you know, the cash, if it's gonna take time, of course the guy is gonna, you know. So for me, that's the number one thing, right? You know, merchants are not thieves. They want to pay their taxes. So for me, I think, like Abraham said, you know, I think the regulator, we have nothing to ask. I think it's a tremendous job, you know, but it's really awareness. Like, for instance, why is the person at the customs not doing things? For some reasons that we know, but sometimes it's also just awareness. Why is the fuel authority not allowing, or at least didn't think about the standard of posts? Lack of awareness, maybe. Maybe because they thought, and they told us, I'm not making this up, that they thought that post machine was not a digital tool. Last time I checked, this, you know, a very much digital tool. So the good news is that they were working on it, right? So I don't really have any specific requests. You know, even the banks are really working with us. They're outsourcing their services to us. You know, we already have a few banks that are completely outsourced their post operations to us. So no requests also to the banks. We see a good amount of transparency and eagerness to collaborate. Folks like Visa are also, you know, doing their part. So really, I think it's awareness is our enemy, not literacy, but awareness.
Thank you, Bernard. And I accept the comment. So Nail, from your side, anything, what needs to happen from your side, or what are you planning? But also, if you have any requests as well.
So I think, I mean, to be honest, I would like to thank the National Bank of Ethiopia because without them, I mean, we wouldn't be able to survive in this market, right? So that's first, so being thankful. One problem that actually I'm seeing is regarding onboarding, right? So most businesses, most merchants actually have issues on that. They don't have the full compliance documents, actually. They are not fully compliant. So most of them, they may have the business license, but they may not have the rent agreement. So I think in this part, because most businesses actually that we haven't onboarded yet because of these simple issues, and they're very tired to actually go to the ministry office to update their license. So I think there must be something here, or even to push the national ID. So any individual can actually be onboarded on the gateway to receive payments. So this would actually create many gig workers to work on this part. So I think that's one thing. And the second one is the sandbox. I think we need to really push on that, because we as Chapa, we were declined actually some applications to go to market because of different reasons. So at least if there is a sandbox, we can try on that. And if it really works out, then we can actually be able to bring it to the market. So I think we need to push on that as well. And I think the third one, so by the way, the very good thing is that, for example, if you see the rate between the last year and this year, there were 800,000 more people, which are new, connected to the internet. So it means in Ethiopia right now, every day, there is 2,200 people which are connected to the internet. It's actually a very big milestone. I mean, it's like the same as in a year, it's like the population of Djibouti. So I think we can work on that as well hard. So, and the last one that I would actually comment is the issuance for merchants. So most merchants, the reason why they are not actually onboarded on the gateway is because they may have some fear on trust. They may say like, what if my money is lost, right? So I think if the National Bank can actually be the guarantee for the gateways on that aspect, then we can be able to onboard many merchants. Thank you.
Thank you, Nail. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna make it short, but you know, I don't know if I'm pushing my luck, but I wanna ask one challenge. The same way we did for fuel mandate, can we also do it for merchants? You know, it cannot. I know it might not probably very practical when it comes to the whole thing, but can we do it like, you know, in an amount basis, like for some amount of payment, then you can use cash, but then if you are passing this amount, then make it digitized. So that way we can attract more. But the next challenge, the ask will gonna be, are you going to reach them properly with digital? Yes, we can, because there is QR code now. Tap to phone is gonna be there, and we are gonna make it more affordable for them to, to reach the 2 million than that of the 12 using the expensive. So there are many less expensive merchant acceptance mechanisms and technologies that we can use. That is one. The other challenge that I want to give is back to the fintechs, is because now you have seen how many of you has transacted into a merchant and then had to give your phone to the waiter or someone to take a picture of that transaction. If you create, I think you have already created it, but distribute it properly and then reach them well and give them those merchant applications for them to see the transaction while you did that transaction into their screens, so that they don't have to do that. So bring the appropriate solution to them, to the MSMEs properly. So those are the two questions that I have. But then mostly I really want to say thank you for the National Bank, the Digital Ethiopia 2025 strategy. We are so very happy to hear the data. Last time what we have heard was overwhelming. It's really, really, really amazing, and let's keep doing it, and we are here to support.
Thank you, Yarid. So as you can hear, there is a lot of positive attitude and also bullish in terms of the forecasting. Digital is the way to go. That's accepted. There is no pending regulatory hurdle that's holding us back. There is also a positive sentiment towards in terms of in the market. Merchants are embracing it. And also, the people are aware, and if you actually give them the solution and the right kind of product and the right type of use case, and if you communicate, you build the awareness as well, digital is the way to go. And of course, some recommendations in terms of, can we digitize everything? Can we make it use case basis? Can we make it based on amount? These are some of the challenges, that are being posed to the audience. But one thing, a key takeaway from me is that there is a lot of love and appreciation for the National Bank, and this is something new. So I would like to, all of you, take a minute just to clap, show appreciation for the National Bank. Because I know most of the panelists. I've worked with them over the last 10 plus years, and in previous years on all the panels, the only one that's always sitting in the hot chair that was always getting criticized was the National Bank. But I'm happy to hear that there is a positive development, and there is a more appreciation and less criticism, and actually saying the road is set, the horse is here, we are ready to ride the horse. So I'm really happy to hear that, and wish you all success, and look forward to work together and compete and cooperate as well to drive digital payments across Ethiopia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. If the panelists could go outside and take a quick photo, that would be wonderful. So they're talking about regulators, and I'm the regulator of time. So I've spoken with the team, and we've decided why not do coffee break right now for 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we could do the one final panel session and the long-awaited fireside chat with the governor. So please head to the hallway and grab your coffee. Feel free to come back with your coffee in here as well for the interest of time. Thank you. stretch of the day. The last panel discussion is going to get started in 2 minutes. For the people sitting in the back, maybe if you could come a little bit forward and fill up the front part of the space, the seats, you're more than welcome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. The next panel discussion is going to focus on the transformational impact of digital payments in the public sector. Our esteemed moderator is Mr. Ibrahim Hussein. He has over 20 years of extensive experience in program and portfolio management across various sectors. He's currently serving as the country coordinator for Ethiopia at the United Nations Capital Development Fund, or UNCDF. Ibrahim is dedicated to advocating inclusive digital economies and sustainable development, particularly focusing on marginalized groups such as women and youth who encounter obstacles in accessing finance, markets, and services. Prior to his role with UNCDF, Ibrahim served as the senior project manager at the UNECA. So please help me in welcoming Ibrahim to the stage. He's already here, he's on time. You get 30 minutes so that it's known, 30. I will be timing it.
You got it.
All right.
All right, thank you, Manna. I'm so excited, so I started walking before she even called my name. So you can see how important this session is. Good afternoon, everybody. As Manna said, my name is Ibrahim Mama. I'm the country coordinator for the UN Capital Development Fund, the UNCDF, and honored to be here with you today, sponsoring this event, supporting this event, a historic event that's discussing for the first time digital payments and the growth and potential of digital payments for inclusive digital economies. UNCDF, for those of you who might not know, makes public and private finance work for the poor in low income countries by offering last mile finance models that unlock public and private resources, and especially at the domestic level in order to reduce poverty and support inclusive digital economies and growth. As you have seen yesterday and today, and the sessions are getting more exciting. The last session was a really tough act to follow. So if I do well, I'm quite excited. If I don't, well, Teddy is my good friend, and I'm partially going to blame it on Ramadan because I'm fasting, but it's going to be an exciting event. So we're here to discuss about issues on the potential of digital financial services, and most importantly, digital payments in transforming the public sector. Yeah, but particularly within the public sector, we're looking at transforming public sector service delivery. You've heard it earlier yesterday as well in the video intervention from His Excellency the Honorable Prime Minister, when he talked about the challenges Ethiopia is facing in terms of processing cash, processing, printing, distributing, transporting cash, and the heavy burden it has on the overall economy and the cost implication it had. Now, also importantly, the governor stated yesterday that since October 2023, digital payments have surpassed cash payments, and they continue to do so in the years ahead because the outlook looks great. So there's going to be more digital payments coming in. And during a couple of weeks ago, on the Digital Ethiopia 2025 review meeting, Honorable CEO Freyot of Ethio Telecom stated that we have to work towards reducing the burden of queuing. This sounds much better when I say it in Amharic. Selfin maskarrat allebin, as much as possible. by making sure that we use digital payment systems to make sure public services are more efficient, thereby reducing the burden of queues. Because right now, most of the challenges that we see are queues costing time and, most importantly, resources to the citizens. So with that in mind, and with this backdrop, I'm going to call up my panel, and we're going to discuss about how transformational digital payments can be for improving public service delivery. And for this, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Abiot Sinamo from Ministry of Innovation Technology. I'd like to kindly ask you to come to the stage when I kindly call your names, please. Dr. Abiot Sinamo from Ministry of Innovation and Technology. We have Mr. Gazahin Faisa from Ministry of Health. Yeah. We have Ms. Phyllis Kamau, Visa. She's Head of Government Solutions for Sub-Saharan Africa, Phyllis Kamau. And we have Mr. Patsion Chernet, who is the CEO and co-founder of Orbit Health and Orbit Innovation Hub. And last but not least, we have Mr. Daut Mulugeta from Ethiopian National Digital ID Office. Ladies and gentlemen, please come to the stage and help me welcome them. Thank you. All right, I am missing Dr. Abiot Sinamo, but I think he'll join us. It might be delayed. Okay, thank you. So no introductions required. We're just going to jump into it. And I'm going to start my question with issues related to the latest developments that we see in Ethiopia, which is the digital ID. So my first question will be for Daut in terms of how secure national digital ID systems enable improved public service delivery, and in so doing, what are the ongoing efforts to ensure that digital ID programs and services are made to be inclusive?
Okay. Hi, Ibrahim. Hi, Phyllis. Hi, Bazion. Nice to meet you. Happy to be on this panel. So national ID now, we are at a critical point in national ID's program to provide universal digital ID to every resident in Ethiopia. And that's because, as you've recognized or discussed in the past, digital ID is going to be a critical foundational ID for Ethiopia or digitally enabled services. It's also going to be the trust framework, especially when you talk about digital payments. It's absolutely critical that there is a secure and reliable digital ID system that runs underneath it. What does that mean? It means, especially for payment platforms, we have eKYC services, know your customer services, that is based on digital ID. And this is something that we didn't have in Ethiopia before. In fact, this program, especially the scale-up phase of this program, started about 2 years ago. We are now at 4 million people that have registered or are holding digital ID. It's still a critical milestone, but we hope by the end of this year or in the next year and a half, we'll hit a critical milestone of about 20 to 25 million people, which we think that's a point of no return. A critical mass of people, especially given Ethiopia's size of the population. I've heard our Ghanaian friends speak today. Ethiopia is much, much larger than Ghana, so it will take a bit of time to have our digital ID kind of distributed across the entire population. But on a conceptual level, it's going to build the trust framework for digital and digitally enabled services. But also, most critically, eKYC is going to be an important stepping stone that this ID will provide. And of course, when we designed our digital ID system, we also made sure that offline onboarding can happen. For instance, offline authentication and also onboarding, remote onboarding can happen. A good example is the Apollo platform that Bank of Abyssinia developed. They're already doing onboarding remotely, and this is going to go a long way into ensuring that we bring unbanked population of Ethiopia, which is estimated to be about 35% to 38% currently into the banking sector. And of course, once they are brought into the banking sector, we expect them to be in the tax net. We expect them to have business licenses and basically be part of the digital economy. And then, of course, lastly, but most importantly, is financial access and inclusion by way of loans, non-collateralized loans. We say in Digital ID that identity is the new collateral. So we think that giving people access to digital identity will ultimately allow them to use their digital identity as a collateral. And Vice Governor was saying today that National Bank has started a registry for movable assets. There is going to be a credit scoring bureau. And all this, we expect them to be customers of digital ID on the way to ensuring inclusion, digital inclusion, also digital transformation.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. This session, we've heard data is the new collateral. Dave is saying now identity is the new collateral. So I think we're shifting into more digital collaterals, which makes it even more fascinating. So let's just jump into the use cases now. Gazang, I'm going to come to you in terms of health sector use cases. So how are digital payments envisaged to actually improve health sector service delivery? And on concrete terms, what programs or initiatives are currently in place to leverage the power of digital payments in improving health service delivery?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this such types of conferences to express the scenarios from the health institutions and from the Ministry of Health. As you know that for the economy to have be it a digital way or the cash to transact normally or healthily, there should be a healthy citizen in the country. So for that, the health sector is one use case that you all to think of and provide a solution or help us to improve the service delivery at our health institutions. You know that in the community level, we do have about 18 health posters that is very close to the community, and also the hospitals are about 400. All these give or provide services, but for the service that they provide, they collect many cash. So that cash has to be collected by providing the receipt on manual or the paper receipts. So even if you sponsor, be it from the city or from abroad, to sponsor someone who is in the rural area that to get health service at hospital, first that person has to get the cash from the nearest bank and then has to take to the health service area. So during that, there will be a theft or the bribery, which is common. So having this, we are working on actually improving the health service delivery for hospitals or health centers by implementing the electromedical record systems. I think Paziwan can help me on this as well, because we are working on that together. So in that case, we started to digitize the services, but still we remain on the digitizing the cash collecting areas. So this is one use case that the fintech can think of. And the other is from the rural areas that collecting the health insurance package. We do that manually. Actually, Brooke from Telever has stated in his presentation or discussion yesterday that it's newly started, but it is from the market, it is very huge, and we do have lots of gaps. So ministry is working on implementing these digital payments for health service delivery aspects together or parallel to the improvement of the digital service delivery. So that's
wonderful. Thank you, Gazain. Patsion, I'm going to come over to you while we're on the topic of health. You're coming from the private sector perspective and practice as well. What innovative solutions are currently being practiced to integrate digital payment systems in their current state and potentially in the innovation state as well into improving public sector health service improvement.
Okay, thank you. I guess when we look at healthcare service delivery, we divide it into two. There's a sick care, what that means is that someone that's sick, being able to receive the care that's necessary. But at the same time, we have a preventive care, which is what we call wellness. In these two different scenarios, we also look into ecosystems around them. For example, within the sick care space, where you go to a hospital, but it's not just you and the doctor that are transacting services. You buy medicine, you need laboratory services, radiology, what have you. By that level of transaction by itself triggers another dimension where we call what we call the digital ecosystem, which is very early, very fragmented, as Gazang indicated. Currently, we are implementing an electronic medical record across both public and private facilities. We're in a very early stage of digital adoption within the health system. So without having a solid expansion of this digital services, it would be very difficult to talk about transformation within the care transaction. So hence, part of the integration with national ID or digital ID, you need to have systems that are understanding, capturing information of patients. Ethiopia has over, if you aggregate both private and public facilities, over 7,000 health facilities, including pharmacies and hospitals and health centers and what have you. The digital penetration and digital literacy is just less than probably 5%. So I guess the lion's share of work has to be still done by the private sector as well as in partnership with the public sector, which is similar to what we are currently doing with Ministry of Health. The mission critical of any digital transformation is digitization. Hence, digital literacy becomes critical. Now, let me come back to the actual service transaction dimension. You go to a hospital, if you are sick, you might not have enough money. So where do you get access to cash? Probably banks are not even at that level currently where you can actually buy medicine, pay later. Such schemes are not known here in Ethiopia. They are just in a very early infancy. Our insurance space, currently CBHI, sort of community-based health insurance, covers sort of the lower class of society. But above that, there's still room for microinsurance and corporate insurance and whatnot. I guess with this full maturity, we will be able to see, healthy society as a productive society. And finally, the policy dimension is something that's limiting. For example, microinsurance space in Kenya is far advanced as an industry. It's not just product providers, but rather there's a strong, solid insurance industry in Kenya and Ghana. Probably we have some folks from Ghana as well. You travel to Nigeria, the similar scenario. The penetration is still small, but you have an industry. So when it comes to health sector, it's in a very, very early infancy. And I believe digitization, integration with digital ID will open up doors for both private sector, private innovators, as well as the public sector as well.
Thank you, Pazion. So digital literacy is an issue, huh? So we might have a one-on-one talk outside with Bernard later on. Phyllis, I want to come to you from Visa perspective and looking at, again, the experience of Visa regionally in the Eastern and Sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa overall, but also, again, Visa's footprint in Ethiopia is actually growing. Its integration with other sectors is actually expanding. Now, in your opinion and experience, what sort of collaborations between the public and the private sector would help foster the further proliferation of digital payment services, and what perspectives do you foresee for Ethiopia?
Sorry for that. So thank you very much. I think when you think about public sector digital transformation, for this to happen, there's a lot of investment that goes into public sector digital transformation. I think we come from private sector, and we know even in our own private sector, if we want to move ahead with digital transformation, there's a lot that is required in terms of investment, in terms of skills development, in terms of innovation, and that's not different from the public sector digital transformation. And so what we've seen across Africa is that today, each country is moving ahead to transform delivery of public services. So governments are moving to become more digital. In fact, today we are talking about e-government ecosystems. We are talking about smart governments. And basically what this is, it means that services are online, and this means all services, you know, health is one of just the service, but that government is able to bring all the services online. Second is digital documents. You know that citizens come to you every day to access their documents. So these documents are digitized, but they are also available. And then, of course, underlying services and access to government documents is always going to be payments. Now, across all these three pillars, there's a lot of investment that government has to put in to bring these ecosystems to life. You know, whether they're dealing with legacy systems that are even fragmented, or they are basically manual. There's just a lot that is going behind to make this happen. So the opportunity that is there is that this digital transformation has to be led as a collaborative effort between the government and the private sector. And the government has to create an enabling environment where, you know, financial institutions, technology companies, today we are talking about GovTechs, can thrive to enable government to move forward. And so when you really think about what we want to bring in terms of transformation, even the digital ID, all these, you know, ecosystems, for them to become alive, there has to be adoption. And so if private sector is not leading adoption of where government wants to take the population, it will not happen. And case in point is the transport mandate that happened last year. So government comes and issues a mandate that fuel sector should be digitized. For that to have happened, for adoption to have happened, private sector financial institutions needed to come in and create, you know, the platforms for the citizens to be able to pay. And so this is where the heart of collaboration between private sector and government in terms of public sector transformation and overall transformation of digital payments really happens. Again, when you think, even when you think about today, we've launched QR payments. EdSwitch has taken us through a whole transformation that they are leading. If that will not be driven by actual adoption by, you know, private sector companies, that QR adoption will not happen. Okay? And for that to happen, it's the role of government to now create the right environment for private sector to thrive, for private sector to invest into the ecosystems to drive adoption and growth of digital payments. And so it's important that, you know, the regulators think through the business models that financial institutions are able to reinvest and grow digital payments. The third pillar is around innovation. You know, in terms of digital payments, we will always talk about modernization of digital payments. We will never stop to modernize and to grow. For this innovation and modernization to be driven, then private sector and financial institutions are at the heart of that. So first is regulation and the right policy environment to drive modernization, but also it's the private sector investing into this and also helping government to drive innovation. There has to be a very good appetite between how private sector, financial institutions, and the regulator and government agencies collaborate, build some level of public-private partnerships to drive innovation and adoption of new technologies. We are in private sector, you know, we are Visa, we are global, so we come across a lot of best practices and global, you know, information. And unless this is adopted by our financial institutions and, you know, ecosystem, then the digital transformation will not happen. And then, of course, it's the hygiene issues. It's awareness. I think we had a whole panel here of private sector players in Ethiopia around financial literacy, around cybersecurity, ensuring that payment ecosystems are secure so that our citizens can trust these ecosystems. So at the heart of transformation is a government that's leading the right regulation and policy, and also an environment that allows private sector investment into, you know, the right technology, and all players, not just like banks. It has to be fintechs, it has to be technology service providers that will then bring the momentum. When I think about Ethiopia, I've been in this market working for the last 5 years. I mean, we were here when we started, you know, the payment strategy 3 years ago, and where we were, 27% in terms of financial inclusion. Today we are saying that number has doubled. There is opportunity, and that, you know, re-emphasizes the critical role the central bank plays in actually enabling the right regulatory environment for us to enable digital transformation and for everybody to come and invest. I think we are looking at a new Ethiopia where, you know, we know that foreign investment is being encouraged, the space is being opened for all players to come in. Fintechs are thriving, and I think the central bank is investing a lot of time to understand business models even for fintechs. You know, how are they going to make money, and how do they continue to drive investment so that we expand acquiring, merchant acceptance, digital payments, instant payments, even for small value transactions. What does that mean? And so for me, what I see is that there is environment for growth and digital transformation, and this is being driven by different sectors of the government, both the central bank, the Ministry of Innovation and Technology, up to the level of the Prime Minister's office. And what we've also seen across Africa, you know, that leadership at the highest level to drive transformation is critical to move the needle in the country.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Phyllis. David, let me come back to you again one more time. Then now we understand, and you've coined it very well. Identity is a collateral. Although Gazahani is saying health is collateral. We're looking at so many collaterals today. But identity is a collateral, and you have highlighted very well the importance it plays in advancing digital payments. How come we're not seeing a ubiquitous application of identity right now? What are the major challenges that are holding us back from having an expanded implementation of digital ID services?
Well, I mean, it's a number of factors, right? First, the adoption. I mean, this is a journey of 2 years, right? I mean, digital ID from the very conception, it's a long journey, but really, digital ID from a service lens began about 2 years ago. So given that 2 year span, you can say, I think we've done a good job of accelerating the adoption of digital ID. And also not just adoption, I mean, the numbers, I think, don't do justice to how much work has been done in terms of integrating use cases. Because number one, all banks, all 32 of them now, are integrating with digital ID. And of course, a big thank you to National Bank and the work that went behind it, and then of course, Bankers Association, and again, ET Switch, working with us to make sure that there's a widespread, from a technology point of view, adopting it. Because I think with our KPI, you know, people always look at how many people are registered, how many people are actually walking around with digital IDs on their hands and their wallets and their digital devices. But from a use case point of view, if you ask me, there is no sector that we haven't touched, really. And the financial sector is a big one, for obvious reasons we're working with them. But if you go into the health sector, education, in fact, the first wave of 1 million people that we registered came from Ministry of Education. This where students were doing 12th grade exam. So it was a seamless integration we had with them. But any sector you can think of that in Ethiopia that has a public-facing touch point has in one way or another started working with us or integrated with us. So from that point of view, I don't think there has been quite a challenge. I think what the challenge is when it becomes at a transactional level. Say Ibrahim walks into, I'm going to name a bank, Bank X, and then provides his physical credentials. Of course, I mean, most bank tellers or someone walking, if you give that card to a traffic police, they struggle because, you know, identity in Ethiopia has always been seen as something that you hold in your wallet. It's a card that has your photo, identifies where you live, this is a federal system, and so in a way also identifies where you come from. So that behavioral switch hasn't happened. So we still have people coming and say, no, but this is fake, no, we can't accept this. They disregard the fact that the card behind it actually has a QR code, a digitally signed QR code that can identify that person almost 100% using the biometric data that we collect. So, I mean, yes, there is a behavior element to it, that we haven't done well. So that, I think, eventually we'll get there, especially now. I think what we are doing, most of it is in Addis, but we need to go to the regions. We need to build on the farmer stack, or the stack that Minister of Agriculture is building. There is a farmer profile initiative now happening at Minister of Agriculture. My friend from Lersha can speak about it. Abraham is here right now. But that will happen when we are integrating with Minister of Agriculture, and then farmers there will be digital farmers. That's the vision, right? But also, I mean, there's also limitations with infrastructure. When we began, of course, such an undertaking of registering every individual, every resident in Ethiopia. I'm not talking about just Ethiopians. We're talking about refugees. We're talking about any legal resident in Ethiopia. Takes a huge amount of resources, which our government, to be honest, does not have available in its coffers to do. So you always have to go for external funding for this kind of rollout. So it took us about 2-3 years to convince the World Bank that this is worth it. This is a critical building block for the digital transformation that Ethiopia is building. So that journey by itself took us a long time, but we're happy now that we have the resources. That won't be an issue. We'll have all the kits available. And I think I'm happy to say that in terms of use cases, we've done very well, making sure that everybody has some sort of touch point with us. So we are at that point of takeoff. But the behavior element will be there. We need to do a lot of communication. We need to do a lot of kind of really go down to the grassroots level and really engage with citizens. Now it's no more institutional level. It's no more at government ministry level, leadership level. It has to be with citizens. That we need to start very, very soon. So yeah, that.
Thank you, Daud. And use case being one of the mechanisms to change behavior. And then let's go back to health. Passion, I'm coming to you. What are the major challenges right now within the digital health service provision and integration of digital payment services? Yeah, Daud talked about the ID-related issue, but what core challenges do you see, and what solutions are there in front of us?
I guess when it comes to challenge, I mean, we can sort of mention quite lots of them. But now I wanted to bring a different light into what's been happening in the last at least 4 or 5 years. Since Corona came, as you can imagine, the accelerating the testing, finding out who has the virus and isolating and all that, it took lots of time and innovation. So shrinking down the amount of time it was taking 2.5 weeks to 12 hours, then 6 hours. And then, of course, now we have technology that will just detect immediately, right? Then the health sector widely adapted some level of digitization, digital component of transaction or monitoring, understanding data and whatnot. So there has been a lot that's been happening. Now, at the same time, I think where we are at right now, we cannot just follow this little, tiny steps, but at the same time aspiring to transform the entire country. So it's a big country. So one of the things that we learn, for example, in our incubation program, it's a national program. When we recruit someone from Jijiga versus Dredawa versus Addis, their understanding, exposure, understanding of challenges and problems in their community is far different than from each other. So what that does is we need to reframe how we are looking at digital transformation, digital solutions, and then adoption at the same time. And I believe the 4 critical dimensions have to come together, whether it's health or education or agriculture for that matter. We need to have good product, innovative product. You need to have well-trained digital literacy again, awareness of services, transactions, but at the same time processes and processes, and of course policy. Ethiopia is one of those countries where what we call policy on demand happens. You don't even know if you need it, but then you find out that you don't have policy, so you hold things back. Now, the sandbox idea is opening up doors for us. If we really consider the innovators, policymakers, and the actual sector players coming together forming the sandbox concept, we can accelerate and expedite the sort of the amount of innovation that should happen on the ground. I know we are running out of time, but there are several use cases, especially when it comes to adoption of digital ID. Some critical sectors, health is one of them, because you have folks from birth to death, the entire citizen, if you will, they could be part of this use case. At the same time, health is not adequate. You can link it with education. You can link it to the bank. You can link it to anything you can imagine that demands public services. So I guess sandbox concept is widely successful continent-wide. I think we should adapt it in Ethiopia as well.
Super. Thank you. Time is always running out when you're having a nice conversation. So I'm going to give one last round of quick shots for everybody. Gazanya, I'll start with you. Quick perspective from Ministry of Health side in terms of how best to further expand the adoption of digital payment systems into health service delivery. What are the key milestones that we should look forward to within what the Ministry of Health is doing?
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Ministry of Health working, preparing the standard based on the Digital Ethiopia. We call it the Digital Health Blueprint that identify digital payment and the unique identifier as one of the priority area to work on. So the national ID coming, and then we are working on that with national ID program. So we have hope to solve issues regarding the identifier of clients across the health sector, so that the seamless referral case will happen, and all the treatments like the diabetes or the ART patients, whatever, will be identified uniquely across. And the other is digital payment. So in the health service, we do have, we just as Paziona said, it's almost on the early stage, but we have started to automate the health service. So for that, the payment aspect is not yet started, or still we are using the normal or the traditional one. But having the solutions like the QR code and other payment platforms, an integrated payment platform will solve the issues that we have currently. And for that, we are working, preparing how we can leverage such service delivery with help of partners like the Better Than Cash Alliance and others working on this digital payment improvements in the ministry. So we hope we will, in the future, still the ministry, the health service delivery also will be improved and be part of the digital technology. Definitely will be, definitely. Phyllis, from African experiences perspective, what best practices do you see potentially applicable to Ethiopian context?
Yeah. So in terms of best practices, I think one is layering digital ID to provision of public sector services. It's very critical because it helps to identify and know the population, and then layer that to actually provide services. I think countries that are moving towards e-government and proper public sector digitization are doing that. Kenya is an example, although digital identification of people in Kenya is long before that, but they actually have used identification to then layer on services. And when I say that, what I mean is that when you go to access any government services, you have to first be identified, whether you are a person or you are a business. And so that helps to actually accelerate services and then kind of consolidate e-government, because what we see is a second challenge, a lot of fragmentation of government ecosystems. Systems can't speak to each other. So you have legacy system, expensive investments. And so what we are seeing as a second trend is governments are consolidating, centralizing their digital e-government platforms. So you are bringing the digital ID, and then you are bringing services into a single portal where citizens can actually access these services and kind of then build the big data build eKYC upon it, build digital, services and access to financial services on top of that. And when I say centralized government services, I think we've seen the e-citizen platform in Kenya, and government now trying to bring all services online. We have the Irembo system in Rwanda. We have Ghana.gov in Ghana. And kind of what we are seeing is a trend to actually build all these centralized ecosystems and use them to actually, give services, whether it is health, education, the verticals, so that they are easily accessible to our citizens. And what we know is that when you create efficiency in public sector services, it drives economic growth, it drives GDP, it saves time, and it enables, businesses and citizens to thrive. And so we've seen that trend towards e-government, and ourselves as Visa, I think we are working to enable these ecosystems. We've been working with governments to enable the platform. We are in partnership with the digital ID and with our financial institutions in the country, just to see how we can create robust platforms, for the delivery of public services, and also digitize and enable digital payments to thrive. Thank you,
Phyllis. Dawit and Patsy, on one final question for both of you. Now the privacy and data protection law is endorsed by Parliament. Now, just quickly, if you can touch upon that, how do you expect that to really shift the way we're working now in terms of data exchange in the health service?
Yeah, no, I think that also answers the other dimension where currently there are several things that happen, including the PDP, and of course you all heard the Prime Minister's. I don't want to sort of piggyback on what happened, but it's a major shift of by the government. So which means there's a conducive environment that's been created. It didn't happen overnight. So what it should do is for the private sector to have a mindset to accelerate growth. Whatever it is that we are doing, we should be able to accelerate it. And then the gap plus model should definitely work for us, government, academia, and the private sector and development partners. And without partnership, I don't think we can advance that far. But this is an amazing time for private sector because government identified their roles, and then I think we can really accelerate any innovation. Thank you.
I think let me start from the simple one. Now that the PDP law is passed, so the World Bank can give us all the 350 million that they promised. That was one of the conditions for effectiveness. So that puts all of us at ease, including the entire country. Though that means we have the resources to do what we've been mandated to do. But in all earnestness, even before the PDP, national ID was over-designed for privacy. I would say that because even before the PDP, we make sure our proclamation included the key provisions to ensure data sharing, data management, and kind of being a safeguarding of data. For national ID, the subject is the owner of data. We are only holding it for them. So we recognize that even before the PDP, but having the PDP obviously gives us an enormous level of credibility. Because I still have friends who ask me, are you going to use my data to reverse search, or the government's going to use the data, the biometric data to track me, and kind of all the surveillance issues that come up. And of course, I mean, we keep saying, no, we won't track you, but now that there is a law, I think it provides a huge amount of credibility to national ID, and also puts us accountable. Not only us, but the people and our partners that are going to be using national ID for authentication. They will be legally held accountable if somehow they breach that privacy law. But I also want to say that the data is end-to-end encrypted from a technology point of view, so that even national ID, without the consent of the individual, we cannot access an individual's data. So yeah, it's a great news for us. Very happy about that.
Super. No, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. My three key takeaways are, first off, use cases are essential. Yeah, for digital payments to actually take off, use cases, hanging on use cases, attaching them with use cases, and especially in this particular case, health sector. Second one, layering of different services, yeah? In terms of from public service perspective, in terms of attracting and building trust, layering of different services is found to be essential. third and most importantly is the promotion of the key digital public infrastructure, such as the ID, and then the payment follows. But most important, the advent of the data protection framework. Data exchange is going to make the proliferation of digital payment services a lot more ubiquitous. Please thank my panel for me, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Please make sure to go outside and get a panel photo. Chat with the governor. I want to say our moderator, but I don't know if I should say our conductor, or the person that's going to converse with the governor today is going to be Mr. Henok Asafa. Henok Asafa is the founder and managing partner of Precise Consult. Precise is a leading economic development and investment advisory firm working to revolutionize the way business is done in Ethiopia. He served as a volunteer board member with the Addis Ababa Chamber of Commerce and the American Chamber of Commerce in Ethiopia, demonstrating his commitment to fostering economic opportunities in his homeland. Henok founded Precise Consult, a hub for business and economic development in Ethiopia. He is equipped with a graduate degree from Fordham University, and through Precise Consult, Henok facilitated strategic engagements with investors and played a pivotal role in initiatives such as Ethiopian Climate Innovation Center and the Agribusiness Incubator. So please help me welcome Mr. Henok to the stage so that I think it's ready. Please, warm welcome. Stretch your hands a little bit, clap your hands. Fantastic. All right. Last but not least, His Excellency Governor Mammo ምህረቱ is the 10th governor of the National Bank of Ethiopia. Before he was appointed as the governor of the National Bank, His Excellency served as the founding CEO of Ethiopian Investment Holdings, the strategic investment arm of the government of Ethiopia. EIH manages all key commercial companies from the government of Ethiopia, such as Ethiopian Airlines and Ethio Telecom. His Excellency Governor Mammo is a member of the Ethiopian Microeconomic Council, which is the body that steers economic policy and strategy decisions. He has been a member of the Secretary of the Council for the last 4 years. He is an active member of the economic team that conceptualized, developed, and implemented Ethiopia's economic reform program. As a board member of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia for 4 years, the largest financial institution in the country, His Excellency chaired Commercial Bank's transformation program. His Excellency also served as a senior policy advisor to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Ethiopia's chief trade negotiator from 2018 to 2021. While working at the office of the Prime Minister, His Excellency helped create the policy and performance department that oversees performance outcomes of the government agencies. Before joining the Ethiopian government in 2018, His Excellency was a senior project manager and the at the World Bank Group in Kenya from 2010 to 2018, working mainly on finance competitiveness issues. His Excellency the Governor obtained a master's degree in leadership, public administration, and economic development from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University in the United States. He also holds a postgraduate degree in trade and investment from the Universities of Pretoria and the University of Amsterdam. He was a golden medalist when he graduated from Addis Ababa University School of Law. I took my time today to give a longer version of a bio because one of the most important people in this room, of course. Please help me welcome His Excellency Governor Mammo to the stage for the fireside chat. A little bit more warmer. The panel discussion will last around an hour.
Good evening. እንዴት ዋላችሁ? I'm really impressed with this conference and just how full this room is, given it's a Saturday afternoon, a Saturday evening, but also it's fasting season, both for our Muslim and Christian parts of our society. It just tells us how important this conference is and how well organized it is. So I would like to congratulate the organizers. I'd like to thank them for a wonderful job done. And I would like to congratulate you for sticking around for 2 days. Let me start very quickly, His Excellency the Governor, by congratulating you also for becoming a leader within the national bank system that is now increasingly known for innovation, for engagement, and for the application of new technologies to improve people's lives. I would like to echo several participants, and most importantly from the private sector, who are increasingly appreciating the leadership of the National Bank. You can clap. So my first question would be, I think, to go back to first principles. Lots has been said in the last couple of days, but I want to go back to the basics. Why are we doing this? We're talking about digital financial services, payments, digital Ethiopia, all of that stuff. Why are we doing it in your view? Why is Ethiopia doing this? And what do you expect to achieve in concrete terms as a country, as a national bank governor? And then really, it would be nice if you can link this directly to the country's ambition, the country's economic development policy, and how does it fit in a coherent way within that? I know that's a lot of questions. Let me pass back to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, can you hear me? Excellent. So thank you so much, Henok, for the kind words. I think, someone was saying the same thing in the earlier panel. First of all, at the National Bank, the most important thing for us is not for us to be appreciated. I mean, that's not the point. The point is for us to get the work done collectively and to try to improve people's lives. So that is the most important, the most gratifying acknowledgement that one can receive. I think with that, Henok, you used a very important word, first principle. So let's just start with the foundations. I mean, there are many of you in this room know a lot about fintech, about payment system and this and that. But I think it's important to step back a little bit and think of what are the first principles? Why are we doing this? And why is this so important for the central bank? For me, I start with the basic function of the financial system, what the financial system is supposed to do. I mean, whatever you say, whether it's digital financial services or traditional financial services, the basic function of a financial system is intermediation. It is actually transforming savings into investment. That is the first principle. A truly functioning financial system would transform people's saving into investment that hopefully will increase the economy's productive capacity. That's what financial system is supposed to do. That is the first principle. So the key question about digital financial services is, to what extent do we accelerate that function? To what extent do we add value on that core function of a financial system, which is investment, which is increasing productive capacity of the economy, which is transforming people's lives. That is the goal at the end of the day. So when we look at Ethiopian financial system, and I think I've been talking about this for quite a while now, there are a number of limitations that need to be addressed. By the way, I really strongly encourage you to look at the National Bank's 3-year strategy. We actually, the public version is up in our website. We try to summarize what our core strategy is, particularly when it comes to financial inclusion and deepening. But just going back, what are the limitations? I think the first limitation that I see is that the function of financial intermediation in Ethiopia, for most part, is limited to banks. Banks are the most important entities that are mobilizing, that are transforming savings into investment. And that practice has significant limitations. I think for a starter, you are most likely to get credit if you are rich, paradoxically, if you have collateral. If you don't have collateral, it's very, very difficult to get financial services. By that, I mean the basic function of savings, basic function of credit, insurance, and investment. So these basic foundational services are limited for most part for people who have collateral. So paradoxically, the richer that you are, the easier it is for you to get credit. There's a famous saying, as James Baldwin used to say, it's very expensive to be poor. If you are poor, it's very, very difficult to get credit. So I think the fundamental issue that we need to address is to make credit available to whoever needs it. So I call this the agenda of democratizing finance in Ethiopia. We need to democratize finance in Ethiopia. So the most important function of digital finance, to just answer your question, Henok, is if we use digital financial services, if you use technology better, then we have a better chance of making credit available, making saving available, making insurance available to those who need it. So for me, when I think of digital financial services, this is the most important tool in terms of leveling the playing field between the illiterate and the literate, between the poor and the rich, between the urban and the rural population. So it's an important tool in that regard. So that's why we care about this agenda. Second thing that I would say is, this is repeated in this session, and I'm sure yesterday as well, that the payment system in Ethiopia is not efficient. We tend to rely on cash, physical cash, and again, that also needs to be transformed. So for this, it's important to focus on digital payment, and for me, payment is just one layer. I mean, there is so much emphasis on payment, and I will come back to that point. We need to go beyond payment, but making payment efficient, making payment safe, and making payment transparent is also an important agenda in its own right. So that, again, is why we care about digital financial services. The third and most important issue has to do with financial inclusion and access. We rightfully, I would say, boast about the number of mobile users in this country, 90 million, whatever figure that we quote. We have a number of people who are benefiting from the current financial system. But the fact of the matter is, close to 50% of Ethiopians still do not have access to financial services. They still don't have bank account, which is a gateway to financial service in most cases. So there's so much work that needs to be done in terms of increasing financial access, in terms of promoting financial inclusion. Particularly, something that as the National Bank that we care about, there is this issue of gender gap in financial inclusion. We need to address it. It's unacceptable, the situation that we are in currently. I'll come back to that point. The third point has to do with financial inclusion. For all of this, digital financial services is absolutely critical. I think the progress that we've made in the past couple of years is fantastic, but there's so much work ahead of us that we need to do collectively as members of this community, which I will make reference to a little bit later. So I think why we care about this issue, the first principle for me are these three points, right? The issue of democratizing finance, the issue of making payment efficient and transparent, and the issue of course, addressing the financial inclusion gap. Those three issues are very, very important. Now, having said this, and I know I'm speaking at length, I know that, but let me just try to address the second part of your question, which is, what vision do we have? I think before we move that, I think it's important to acknowledge the effort that was made in the past couple of years. At the central bank and elsewhere in the government, there are several efforts that the government undertook in terms of creating a competitive environment for digital financial services. Of course, the most important is the investment that we made in infrastructure. You know, in my speech, in the beginning, I talked about the investment in its switch, for example. The National Bank has a functioning settlement mechanism, what we call RTGS, that we invested significantly. We also have other infrastructure investment that we made over the course of the past couple of years. That's a significant investment. But in addition to that, as a regulator, our central task is to create the condition, to create the enabling regulation for digital financial services and for that matter, financial services to thrive. You know, a few years ago, of course, everybody knows that we opened up the telecom sector. It used to be one company monopolizing the market. That sector has been decidedly opened up. The central bank give license to Telebir to start financial services, which led to this significant explosion in financial services. We gave license to M-Pesa, a foreign company. So we took a number of steps to modernize our regulatory environment, to create a condition for the private sector to thrive in this sector. And also licensed private sector players, some of whom were in this panel this afternoon. So that's an important contribution on the part of the central bank. I understand and I know there's more work to be done in that regard. We'll come back to that maybe later, but I think we've done significant work in that regard. So going forward, what's the vision? And why is this conference important? For me, the vision, at the end of the day, is to create a modern, number one, but number two, inclusive, and then secure financial system in Ethiopia. But this modern, I say modern because it will have to be digital, and I say inclusive because it should not leave anybody left. It should include everyone. But at the same time, it should be secure. And this financial system should work for everyone. Particularly, it should work for the women, it should work for the rural, it should work for those who are marginalized. In other words, we need to double down on the agenda of democratization of finance in Ethiopia. So this is an important and a critical agenda for us. We also want this modern and secure financial system to transform lives. The whole point of investing in this is to change people's lives. Access to finance is a key determinant to welfare, to income, to improvement of livelihoods. So that is the vision that we have. For me, one of the most important reason why this conference is important is because we are now in the process of developing the second phase of the National Digital Payment Strategy. I think it's important that this strategy should be a product of the collective work of everybody who has a say, direct or indirect, in this ecosystem. The industry, the private sector, the regulators, everyone needs to collectively participate, and we need to co-develop. Now, this is an important milestone for us to do what's right. And for that to happen, everybody needs to come together, bring in their ideas, share their ideas, and at the central bank, we're willing to listen because we want to get it right. But of course, in this country, the policy directions that we take, the regulations that we take will play a significant role in shaping the landscape going forward. And for that, we need the participation of everyone. And I think this conference in that regard is a promising beginning. Together, I think we should develop the second phase of the strategy. And once we have that, then I think we can actually, further develop and deepen the work that we've started in the past 2 years.
Thank you, Governor. That was an expansive answer. It looked like he was answering a bunch of my questions as well at the same time. I think that's a clear and excellent vision. It is inclusive enough to think of the entire 120 million people, those living in rural areas, marginalized groups, women who are traditionally excluded from most financial services. So that vision is fantastic. Although you don't want to take the credit also, I would say what the government and the National Bank has achieved in the last 2 years on mobilizing digital financial system is nothing short of incredible. I think 24 months ago, probably we didn't have any wallets mobile money opened in Ethiopia. And this is probably quite possibly one of the fastest growth of opening mobile money usage in the world, I would dare to say. Maybe we admire Kenya for being groundbreaking in this level, but we've achieved this in 24 months, and this is probably twice the size of Kenyan population. So this is impressive. I think the digitization of payments is impressive, but as you said, a critical factor is how does this then go ahead and improve people's lives? When we build roads, the neighborhoods and the villages that are being connected are not directly necessarily only benefiting from the road, but their productivity, market access, information, all of these things are coming in. And that's really the alpha. That is where we're going to add a lot of value. So I guess my question, where I'm going with this, is it's the entrepreneurs and these innovators who find new ways of reaching this market. The traditional banking system is going to be very difficult for it as it stands right now to reach, to supply loans or provide insurance or micro insurance or other services like investment services, all of these. As it is right now, we are not going to reach all of rural Ethiopia using only the traditional system. And here's my worry. In Ethiopia, I would dare say we have more than 100 years of experience in being open to accepting new technologies at the high level. But what's missing is, we have heard of stories of the Emperor Minilik accepting, a phone call and running water, and Ethio Telecom being over 100 years old. The step where we struggle is in creating the environment for entrepreneurs, for innovators to thrive, to trust innovators where some might not be doing the right things, but most will do the right things and therefore will lead to create these innovative business models. I guess this is a very long-winded way to ask you, what are the things that the National Bank, and probably this is broader than just the National Bank, the government is planning to create this fostering environment? And I'm very hopeful because I see so many companies represented here that are achieving scale that did not exist literally 3, 4, 5 years ago. This is really a promising start. But how do we still struggle? The infrastructure, the public, the bureaucracy, this is all new. We're not used to allowing and trusting entrepreneurs to scale. Maybe solutions being built by our entrepreneurs can expand and provide all kinds of access to neighboring countries, even Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, who all have issues. So let me cut to the chase. My question is, what are these groundbreaking things we're imagining we want to do in Ethiopia in the coming years as part of the coming strategy as well, to enable the entrepreneurs to succeed, to scale, to reach rural areas with all of these value-added services, and maybe even dream about expanding regionally?
So I think this notion of creating a competitive environment, an innovative environment, and I believe is a shared agenda. It's not just for the government to do that. I think it's also the role of the people here also need to do more in terms of creating that environment. I think, from the central bank perspective, we are clear in what we want to achieve when it comes to the financial sector. We said in our strategy, the key focus, the key objective of the central bank, apart from the two most important objectives, which is price stability and financial sector stability, is to actually fundamentally transform the size, the scale, and the type of financial sector providers in Ethiopia in the coming years. So we are open to that idea, even open to the idea of allowing foreign service providers to come and work in this country. Now, not just that, as I indicated before, we are investing in infrastructure, we are changing our regulations, we are trying to learn, to be open to learning, because we know in most areas we don't know everything, so I think we should stay humble in terms of learning. But in the end, the private sector, the operators should also do the work. One person, earlier in the earlier panel, in one question that should be asked to the panelists was, to what extent, each of these fintech companies that were in this panel were able to identify a problem in Ethiopian financial service sector and tackle it. In other words, to what extent is their solution tailored to the context in Ethiopia? I think these are the kind of questions that we should be asking ourselves. At the central bank, we are trying our best. For example, there is this important initiative called the Finance Lab, Innovative Finance Lab, that we are implementing with UNDP, with appropriate regulatory sandbox to try to experiment with new financial services and products. So we're doing our best, but there is more work that needs to be done, and there's more things that we could learn from other countries. But again, I consider this to be a shared agenda. I would also point out that the issue of creating a competitive environment for business broadly in Ethiopia is a marathon. I mean, this is very, when do we say that we have a competitive investment climate? I mean, it's a process. Every day we have to keep at it. We have to struggle. We have to engage. We have to keep educating. So it's not something that would solve overnight. Particularly for people who are Ethiopians, I think we should feel that we are in this together, and we have to do it together. We should not be frustrated. If you are frustrated and if you give up, then I think it will be very, very difficult. And I think the challenge of the task of creating a competitive environment, for me at least, is a shared agenda. It's a marathon. It's a process. We have to keep working. We have to keep engaging, and I think that way we'll make progress. We are making progress actually, so we will also continue to make progress.
Thank you for that. Let me switch gear a little bit. You mentioned inclusivity a lot. I want to speak about the rural population, where I would say, depends on what numbers we look at, but probably 2 out of 3 Ethiopians are in rural areas, and most of them live on smallholder farming. What are your thoughts on financing smallholder farmers? So the numbers I have, in fact, we had done a study a few years ago, and this may not be up to date, is that despite the fact that 1/3 of GDP comes from agriculture, especially 90-95% of it coming from smallholder, and 2/3 of the population being there, most of the loans do not go there. And disaggregated data was relatively difficult to find, but the best guess we could do is low single digits is what was going on to finance smallholder farmers. Now, farming is difficult. Smallholder farmers are higher risk. There's a lot of issues that come along with that. But we can't just leave financing smallholder farmers just to the market, or at least we have to we have to influence the market system so that money is somehow channeled to the smallholder farmers, because that's how we can get them out. So question is, what are your thoughts on moving towards that?
So you're right, agriculture is a very important sector, right? So improving agricultural productivity is a government agenda. Everybody talks about it, and I think we are making progress in that regard. And if you want to improve productivity in the agriculture sector, it's important that we focus on smallholders. And this is a country where smallholders produce, the biggest part of agricultural harvest. It's not the commercial farms, but the smallholder farms are actually the source of agricultural productivity in Ethiopia. And of course, smallholders need to be properly financed. I would say it's three things on this issue. I think first of all, from the central bank perspective, we are doing whatever that we can to encourage banks, financial institutions, including MFIs, to lend to the agricultural sector. There is even a regulatory requirement for banks to allocate a certain portion of their credit to the agricultural sector. Even then, the sector is not sufficiently financed. Partly because banks, in an attempt to maintain their financial health, because of their high collateral requirements, it's very difficult to lend to the agricultural sector because they consider agriculture to be a risky sector. It should also be important to note that the Ethiopian financial sector is characterized by concentration. It's amazing how concentrated the Ethiopian financial sector is. There is concentration in terms of focusing on urban areas. There is concentration in terms of focusing particular sectors. There is concentration in terms of focusing a few creditors. Recently we did a study at the central bank. We were shocked by how concentrated the Ethiopian financial sector is. So of course, it's in the interest of the central bank to try to nudge financial institutions to move to sectors that are not properly served. But again, I'll come back to my previous point, because banks often require collateral, so it's very difficult for them to lend to the agricultural sector. And in my view, this is an area which is ripe for fintechs to go in and transform the sectors. Use data, use transaction data, use other methods, agtechs, fintechs. This has been tried in so many markets to better lend to the agricultural sector. So I think there is tremendous work that needs to happen in that particular sector. So having said that, I will also mention two things. I think first thing is, when people talk about lending to the agricultural sector, they forget that the financial sector still lend significantly to the agricultural sector, particularly talking about fertilizer loan. The president of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is here. A large part of his private sector lending to the agricultural sector, it is fertilizer lending. So yes, within the existing capacity, we are doing our best to lend to the agricultural sector as well. We also implemented a so-called warehouse receipt financing program, which uses warehouse as a collateral to lend to farmers and smallholders. There are a number of efforts, innovative efforts in that direction, but there's so much work that remains. And I think this, some of the fintechs that we see today, instead of just focusing on payment, we cannot be satisfied with payment. And personally, I'm not satisfied with payment. We should go beyond payment and look at broad range of financial products and services, savings, lending, investment, insurance. These are also important. So there is infrastructure that's already in place. There's an expense that's already in place. We need to move beyond that and look at these other financial product and services, and that's where we actually will transform people's life. Cannot be satisfied with payment. Somebody, it's what Munir, who said, earlier when I was having coffee, he said, we should go beyond payment. And I think in the next strategy, for me, the operative word would be, the key concept would be going beyond payment. We need to go beyond payment. We should not just be satisfied with payment.
I think music to everyone's ears in this room. While we're on the subject of inclusivity, I just met Wezaro Malika, who apparently is the only woman CEO of a bank in Ethiopia at the moment. And as you mentioned, concentration, the other concentration is we men tend to be overly represented. I understand you found it important enough to host a conference just on this topic. What were the findings? What were the conclusions and way forward?
So, first of all, I don't know where the Malika is, but yes. So I think we should first congratulate her for being the inaugural chairwoman of New Field. which is Network of Ethiopian Women in Finance, a flagship initiative by the Central Bank of Ethiopia. So I think when you talk about financial inclusion, as it is, it's a big problem because, as I said, half of the Ethiopian population are excluded any basic financial services, and the problem got even worse for women. So there is a significant gender gap in that regard. So I think this is an area that needs to be fundamentally transformed. I think the current state of affairs is completely unacceptable. So for us at the central bank, the issue of inclusion, particularly focusing on women, is important both because of demand side issues, and also supply side issues. On the demand side, women do not have account as much as men. Women do not receive financial services as much as men. There's a significant problem that needs to be addressed in that regard. And this is not an issue of equity. It's not just an issue of fairness. It's actually an issue of good economic outcome. So it's not just an issue of representation. I think this needs to fundamentally change. And I know we make a progress in this area. At the very least, the target that we have in our own financial inclusion strategy needs to be made. And the central bank and all the financial institutions need to be accountable for this on the demand side of issues. On the supply side, women are not properly included and they are not in managerial position. Starting with my own institution at the central bank and all the way to all the other financial institutions. Again, these factors also need to fundamentally change. In our conversation at the central bank, we made a commitment, and I take it as my own personal commitment, as long as I'm in this role, to eliminate a single gender management board in Ethiopian financial institutions. This needs to come to an end. We will revise our corporate governance rules to make it mandatory to have an inclusive board and an inclusive management in Ethiopian financial institutions, and we're working toward that. And this is an important agenda for us. But even importantly, we come up with this initiative, New Field, which should serve as a space where women leaders will come together to mentor, to advocate, to learn from each other, and also to encourage each other. So my hope is in the coming years, with this agenda of women financial inclusion, we'll see a clear and practical progress going forward. And this is a very, very central agenda for the central bank as well.
Thank you, Governor. I think that spontaneous clapping, both from men and women, shows a lot of support. I love the way you put it. It's not a matter of equity. It's much more important than that. It's just about being reasonable and just doing the obviously right thing, about productivity and about pushing our country forward. I really like the way you answer those questions. Again, let me shift gears, my last question, and then I'm going to address some questions that have been submitted from the audience. The issue is on cybersecurity. It's come up many times in the last 2 days in the conversation. Digital financial services offers a lot of advantages, but we need to go along with the technology and with the times as well. Otherwise, especially now that the use of artificial intelligence has become ubiquitous across the world, and it's become, even the thieves have become very productive and efficient. So what are you and the National Bank thinking in terms of how to engage holistically on this issue so that it does not slow down or stop our digital Ethiopia movement?
So, we talk about the benefit of digital financial services, but obviously there is significant risk as well, right? So I worry a lot about privacy, and I worry a lot about, cybersecurity. These are two really critical issues where we need to make significant investment. And we take this work very seriously at the central bank, and we're creating a separate unit on financial integrity and cyber security on top of existing infrastructure, on top of existing agencies that we have across government. So I worry about privacy and of course security. Now, there are a couple of things that we can do. I think the first thing is for the financial institutions, including the central bank, we need to significantly invest in cybersecurity. So we need to increase our investment in that area. At the central bank, it's our task to regulate other financial institutions, and we will do our best that our banks and other financial institutions do have reliable infrastructure in terms of in this area. I mean, you mentioned artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence can also be used for defense purposes, right? So there are a number of things that we can do in that regard as well. But the key thing here is, at least for me, for the banks and other financial institutions in this country to use industry standard when it comes to cybersecurity. I think that would be an important step in the positive direction. So that would be an area that would be focusing on. We are also planning to include the central bank. One of the tasks of the central bank is, of course, to regulate financial institutions. And the way we do that is, number one, by creating regulatory framework, but number two, by actually supervising financial institutions on a regular basis. So one of the key elements of our regulatory framework, regulatory apparatus and supervisory apparatus would be to include cybersecurity concerns. So we're going to include that in our regulation and supervisory functions as well. But I think this is a process. I think we need to learn from best practice in the industry, but this is an area of concern for us as well.
Thank you. So from the audience, there is similar related questions about what measures are in place to protect consumers using digital financial services, especially in cases of fraud and errors. This comes from Etiennat Awal and Amara Ayalna.
Yeah, consumer protection, big agenda. So first of all, I think I want to reassure everyone that we have a consumer protection directive at the central bank. For a long time, the regulation was not effectively put into use. So we recently had a consultative meeting with bank CEOs, and the main agenda in that meeting was how to operationalize the Consumer Protection Directive. And I'm sure some of the CEOs who are here in this room would testify to that fact. The Consumer Protection Regulatory Framework is robust. It outlines the steps that needs to be taken. And the first important step that needs to happen is for each bank, each financial institution, to have in place consumer protection unit. And we're strictly enforcing that. If for some reason, if a consumer of financial services, whether it's digital or otherwise, do not receive a satisfactory answer from the banks, they can always come to the central bank. And at the central bank, for the first time, we have created a consumer protection directorate, and we staffed it. So there's a regular consultation with the banks in terms of surveillance, in terms of addressing consumer needs, in terms of collaborating with the law enforcement agencies to address consumer complaints. This is a task that we are taking seriously, and we've put together the institutional framework for that as well, both at the central bank, and we expect each of the financial institutions to do the same.
Thank you. The next question comes from Ahadu Bank. So what is the National Bank's strategy to centralize the digital micro-lending system, such as the one availed by Telebir Marketplace, to avoid the risk of NPL from the use of decentralized applications provided by various financial institutions?
It's also a good question. Of course, everybody knows that we have a credit information system at the central bank right now. It's a centralized credit information system, but it doesn't cater for digital service providers. We know that, we recognize that. And as a result, we are actually currently working very closely with IFC and the World Bank group to upgrade our credit reference bureau, our credit information system. And I think when that is completed, we'll be able to also collect data from digital service providers, and this would be something that anybody can use. So this is a work in progress, and it's a very good question, and we're working on it.
Thank you. It's encouraging. I think this sector has become extremely vibrant in a number of other African countries, and the companies themselves are actually sourcing a lot of data and using algorithms. So it's encouraging. I know there's a few startups in Ethiopia also going in this direction. Let me go to the next question from Asfa Alamu, Dashan Bank. It seems to me that though the country has big vision regarding the digital economy and financial inclusion, what we observe is lack of alignment on the part of ministerial departments. Private banks that invest a lot in this space are deliberately crowded out from handling digital transactions. Telebir and in some cases CBE are the favored institutions. I believe the NBE needs to be bold enough to ensure equal treatment to the institutions it grants permission to operate. How determined are you in fighting such an injustice? Thank you.
I think this is the most important question, right? So let me say this. You know, at the central bank, we have no illusion, right? It's our responsibility, and we believe we have to create a level playing field. We don't have any illusion about that. Whether it is CBE or Telebir or any other player, everybody will need to be treated the same way. There should not be discrimination. So this is the view of the central bank. Now, in terms of implementing this, you know, there might be lacking. So if that is the case, I take that. I think we'll discuss with the team. You know, there were a couple of ideas. This idea was also raised in our consultative meeting with the bank CEOs before, and I think we had a follow-up team meeting afterwards, and there were a few ideas that we wanted to do. I myself wrote to those agencies, right, Solomon, to a couple of agencies, explaining the central bank regulation that there should be a level playing field, that there should be similar treatment going forward. But this is a task that I think we need to do better. I think we should be doing better, and we'll do better. You know, it is one of the things that this kind of thing could happen as the industry grows, right? As people learn about what appropriate regulatory framework are. But I believe a key foundational principle in fair regulation would be to create a level playing field for every operator without any discrimination. So we take this as a responsibility, and if there's more work to be done in this regard, we'll consult with the National Bank team, and we'll do whatever that we can in that regard.
Asfa was smiling, so that was a good answer. Okay, thank you. I think we have come to, if I am correct, we have come to the end of this session. I would like to thank His Excellency the Governor for having the vision and the execution to move Ethiopia forward with digital payments and digital Ethiopia. Really commend the staff of the National Bank for a wonderfully organized event, and conceptually moving beyond just doing X, Y, and Z, and really thinking about not just productivity, but thinking about new possibilities and new ways of doing business and empowering the Ethiopian people. Really impressive vision that this was organized in. So I would like to thank the organizers for also inviting me and allowing me to be part of this conversation. Please join me to say thank you to the Governor.
I think before I go, because this is also my last opportunity to speak, but So let me say this, when we're thinking about this conference, we didn't know what we didn't know what the landscape looks like. So it was an idea. So it was, okay, let's just try to convene a meeting. Let's make it, if to the extent that we can, an annual event where we'll talk about digital financial services. And we had a conversation with Better Than Cash Alliance representatives and with my team at the Central Bank, and the outcome was quite excellent. And I'm satisfied beyond words. And I think some of the ideas that are expressed in this room hopefully will be used to inform phase 2 of our national digital payment strategy. And I think I really strongly encourage everyone to actively participate in formulating that strategy, because that will be our shared guiding policy framework in moving forward. So I really encourage everybody to participate in that regard. Now, another thing is, to better drive this agenda, at the Central Bank, we'll be creating a new unit which basically is focused on digital financial services. We don't have that kind of unit. Now it's being led by the payment team, but we'll create another unit that will look at digital financial services in a focused manner going forward. So there will be more work, more collaboration, more interaction with industry players going forward. But for this particular conference, I want to thank a couple of people before I leave. Number one, I really want to thank my team at the National Ethiopia. They're excellent. So, Jote, Nagada, Solomon, can you just stand up? So at NB, these three individuals, drove this particular conference and the agenda of digital financial services, and I'm so proud of you, young, strong team that we have at the National Bank of Ethiopia. I also want to thank we have the CEO here and the board chairman, the vice governor, Solomon. If you can stand up. And we have the representatives from, I believe, from Better Than Cash Alliance. Yes, so thank you so much. You've been a great partner for us, and I'm sure you will partner with us in developing phase 2 of our strategy, I hope. And UNCDF, I don't know if we have the representative. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. So all presenters, moderators, and particularly our MC, Manna, right? Manna, it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much. So it was a fantastic conference. Thank you, everyone, for participating so actively in this conference. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. What a wonderful fireside chat and a high note to end this wonderful conference. I just want to quickly say one thing. When I was trying to prepare for this event, I was looking at the objective of the event and looking at what is it all about. And let me quickly read it to you so that you could use it as a moment to reflect on what you've learned. This is exactly on the website. You could go check it out. The Ethiopian Digital Payment Conference is set to be a pivotal platform for collaboration among public and private sector leaders, as well as development partners. This gathering will be dedicated to review advancements, sharing insights, and developing strategies aimed at bolstering the security, efficiency, accessibility of the digital payment system with a focus on expanding meaningful access to financial services. If you really think about it, I feel like we checked a lot of those boxes. There were multiple stakeholders, both from private, public, and from development partners, and we really took time to reflect and share on insights, reviewing successes and advancements from all across the globe. Even though they were not represented, some countries were not even represented in this room, in the conversations that we had, places like Ghana, Kenya, India, Malaysia, South Africa, even Japan. Those were examples that I heard on stage, and I just want to thank everyone. The governor has already thanked the organizing team, the National Bank of Ethiopia, of course, the Better Than Cash Alliance, ET Switch, UNCDF, and everybody else, the media team and the events team that took time to organize this. I want to thank you, and I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to be your Master of Ceremonies. It was a delightful 2-day event. And last but not least, you should thank yourselves for taking a Saturday off and spending time here. So I think you should reward yourself with a quick, what do we call it? Cocktail outside. But before everybody else goes, the speakers and panelists, if you could stay behind and take a photo here with the governor and the rest of the bank CEOs, it would be fantastic. For everybody else, the team outside will lead you to the cocktail. Thank you, and have a wonderful and blessed evening. Speakers, panelists, can you hurry up and come to the front of the stage for the quick photo op? Thank you. You can network after. Please make sure you come to the front. I'm going to keep saying it until I see everyone. Could we make sure the women are in front, the women speakers? Everyone get on stage. Everyone could step on stage. You could use the stairs on the sides. Okay. Half on the bottom on stage and half Okay, so sorry, I'm going to rearrange you all. Panelists in the bottom, and then CEOs and you want, is this fine? CEOs to the top, panelists in the bottom, please. Just quickly shuffle the. No. You know what? Just keep as is. It's okay. Is this good? All right. Thank you. What should we cheese with? Digital payments or? Oh, okay. ያው ሴቶች አነስ ስለሚሉ ትንሽ ሚክስ እንድናደርግ እዚህ ጋር ሆናል። ነይ እዚህ ጋር አንድ ጊዜ ይደገም አልበቃን one more time and everybody else who's in the room, please come join us as well if you would like a photo with everyone else that's in the front.